Hey everyone, welcome to Long Story Short, the podcast. I'm Megan.
I'm Wendy.
And today we're kicking off a new, soon-to-be regular feature on the podcast we're calling Conversations with Friends. And today we are so honored to be joined by Jennie Canzoneri. But before we get to know her, a quick reminder that we love your ratings and reviews, especially when you have nice things to say. If you haven't yet left a review, simply visit meganandwendy.com/Apple Podcast and you'll be taken right to the correct place to do so.
We also love your emails, so send us your emails to the show at meganandwendy@gmail.com. We love to read them. We read almost all of them here on air, and Megan has a few of today she's going to share.
I do. We have two follow-ups from our episode last week where we talked splurges and steals, and the first one is from Jennifer, who says, "We're like you, Megan. My family lives on cereal. My rule, I'm not spending more than $2.50 on a box. Mom's Best goes on sale for about $1.50 every so often, so I will buy 20 boxes and store in the master closet because we don't have space anywhere else. I stock up on grocery items on sale, and I know the cost for all my favorites. I miss going to the grocery store." She also says, "Old Navy for the win." Oh, and Costco clothing. Wendy, can you ever imagine yourself buying 20 boxes of cereal at once?
No. I mean, maybe, but
I would totally do it. That totally speaks to me.
I don't have anywhere to store 20 boxes of cereal. So, and I certainly don't want them in my podcast studio. So,
That's right.
in my master closet. So I mean, I'm happy for them. I wish, listen, I think I am going to set forth on a budgeting challenge for myself. More to come on that.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
This next email is from Heidi, who first of all says she would definitely buy a hoodie. So noted.
Yes.
We're working on it, guys. She says for splurges, she splurges on hair care. After I got married, my husband made a comment that I spent too much money on my hair. So I let him color my hair. As he was rinsing the color out, he asked if my hair guy could fit me in because he said it did not come out so good. After that, he has never made a comment on how much I spend on my hair. Really?
That's extreme. Extreme. Would you let your husband color your hair?
Not in 1,000,000 years.
I mean, I know you don't color your hair, but would you let your husband cut your hair?
No. My husband cuts his own hair, but he has curly hair. So this is what he does. He just takes it and just whacks off at the end, and that's it. And so when I was in the midst of my pandemic hair panic, I needed to get a haircut and was going back and forth on should I cut it. He's like, "I'll do it." And I was like, "Do not come anywhere near me with scissors."
No. Wow.
She says, also, I'm not sure if it's a splurge, but we also always stay in nice hotels because my husband is a germaphobe. He cannot relax on vacation if we're staying somewhere that he feels is not clean. We spend a lot on our hotels, but it's always worth it because he can enjoy himself.
That is fair.
Yes.
Super fair. I can't relax either if I'm freaked out about germs. Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah, I think clean is a perfectly reasonable line to draw in your hotel accommodations.
Absolutely.
So we have with us today Jennie Canzoneri, and I just realized that I'm not sure I've ever said your last name out loud. Am I saying it correctly?
You said it perfectly.
Oh,
You
good.
did great.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have to say, I haven't had a haircut in over a year, and I wouldn't let my husband come anywhere near me. He's offered a lot over the last year, and I had no, the desperation will never be that bad.
Yeah, I finally gave in and did it myself, and I was quite pleased with the results, I have to say. So now I'm like, hey, to my daughter, I'll cut your hair, and she goes, "Mommy, my hair's fine."
Yeah.
She's not that desperate yet. Yeah. So I have known Jennie for years, first online through the internet, because Jennie was the creator of a website I used to write. I knew you prior to that, but then Jennie owned two websites, Style Lush and Food Lush, and still are two of the things I miss most on the early 2000s
Gosh,
internet.
doesn't it feel like a different lifetime ago? I know. Yeah, I miss them too.
And I've also been lucky enough to meet you a couple of times in person.
Yes. Yeah.
So
my Southern California, I used to go for work more often than I have been able to obviously go in the last few years. And you were one of my first emails whenever I would have a trip planned.
Yeah, we went to San Diego for dinner.
Yeah.
So, Jenny, I'm not sure if you know this, but you and Wendy share a common bond in your love of a particular dog breed.
Do you have a Vizsla?
I have 2 of them.
Do you? Oh my gosh, my Vizsla is currently being very obnoxious and trying to get into my lap. So I apologize if she's this is my second. We had one before her, and they are so special. And Murphy
aren't they?
They are so special.
Sweet.
Yeah. She's the sweetest. She's just come back from 2 weeks of behavior training, and she's done really well. We're really impressed with it, but her
how
spirit remains the same. She's 3.
Okay. We
waited. We waited too long.
Well, I hear you. So we've always had Vizslas. We got one after we were married in 2001, and she has since passed. And then we waited a long time before we got another one. And then so we got Penny, and she's 3 now. And then we decided we got a pandemic puppy. We added Roxy
I'm so jealous.
to the crew.
I've been pushing for a second.
I don't know. 2 is a lot. 2 is a lot
It's
together. Yeah,
I imagine.
Roxy is
like the naughty little
Vizsla.
sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one of those little rotten. She's the sweetest dog I've ever known, but she's just rotten is the only. She's just terrible. I mean, she's much better now. We're just post training, but oh my goodness, it's. We went from a 14-year-old Vizsla, who slept 8 hours a day.
Yep.
And then another, 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. And Murphy was such a rude awakening. It was a hard transition, but now we wouldn't trade her, of course.
I understand. Oh, I want to see a picture of her.
I will definitely share one. I have probably more pictures of her than my son because he's in that age where he doesn't ever want me to take any pictures of him. So
yeah, totally.
So aside from having one of the best dogs on the internet, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Jenny?
Sure. Yeah. So I live in a suburb of Fort Worth, and we have been here almost as long as my son has been alive. So almost 12 years we've been in our house, and I work in publishing. So I'm the marketing director at a publishing company, but I work from home, and I've actually worked from home for 5 years. So pre-pandemic, I was also at home, which has been wonderful. And I have a husband and one son. What else? I love travel, and I miss it more than anything. I love reading and skincare and and my dog as well. Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something you're talking about publicly, so I can take this out. But you mentioned at the beginning of the year that one of your goals for 2021 was perhaps to leave Texas.
Oh, yes. No, I talk about it all the time.
Okay.
So you can leave that in if you'd like to. Yeah, I've been in Texas for, 28 years. I moved here when I was 11. So it's been a really long time. And I never thought I would still be here. I met my husband in college, and we were just going to stay a little while. And then we had Kyle, and moving him from grandparents when he was so little felt unfair to all parties involved. So we stayed, and then we just decided we were going to move when Kyle graduated high school. But something with the combination of the pandemic and the election just sort of broke something in both of us. And we just realized, it's waiting for the right time is really risky. It might not ever come. You don't know what's ahead. And we just are hoping we can leave so that Kyle will be able to start 8th grade somewhere else. So that's a year and a half from now.
That's exciting. What's your dream location, or do you have one?
My dream location is Seattle. But Mike's never been there, so it's a little hard for him to dream about a place he's never seen. So his dream location is Colorado, the Denver area. And I would be fine there. I would be fine. We want a blue state. Yes. And we want but also, to find a big city that has good suburbs that can feel kind of like a small town. We have a small town here, and we really love the actual town itself. So finding that vibe would be really nice, and just being able to be somewhere beautiful. Unfortunately, all those things combine to make them very expensive, and we just have to see what's reasonable for us. But we'll sort of sacrifice what we have to, certainly. It just doesn't feel like home anymore here.
Yeah, I am excited to live vicariously through your move because my husband wants to move immediately. And I'm like, well, and he's in the same boat. He's like, you could make excuses for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like, there's never going to be a day when you're going to wake up and be like, okay, today I'm ready. So
Right. And I got a long list of them. And when I get really scared, I kind of talk, I try to run through them all. But where would your husband like to move?
Well, he has a long list of places, but really he wants to move somewhere that has a slower pace of life, is a smaller town, has more nature. I mean, we live in California, but we're not, adjacent to the woods, right? Our house does not back up to a forest that you can just go tromping through. So
it's funny you say that because that's when Mike is pretty kind of easygoing, and so he hasn't set a lot of like demands, but he said the one thing that I just would love is to be able to walk out my back door and just go into the woods.
Yes.
I'm like, well, I don't know how to find that, but we'll try.
It's a very specific ask, but yes, I can relate to that. So we could talk to Jennie about a million things, but the primary reason she is joining us is to share her story of becoming sober in the midst of a pandemic, which is two giant life changes. Can we start with what led you to that choice and what signs maybe you saw that convinced you it was time to make that choice?
Yeah, and if I haven't said, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. This is actually the first sort of live conversation I've had with a potential audience about this, even though I've been really open about it on my Instagram and in my personal life with friends and family. But I feel really honored to be having this conversation with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. We're honored that you're sharing with us.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is important to start is that, it doesn't always look like a scary rock bottom or ultimatums or interventions. And it didn't for me. It really was kind of quiet and really personal and internal. And I probably knew for a number of years that drinking was something I was starting to do in private and starting to do less socially and more, hiding it or doing it once my husband went to bed, and then I could kind of open my bottle of wine. And I think that was probably the key when it started to become something that I was trying to cover up or starting to do less socially and more at home at night once everyone was asleep. And so I certainly knew that whenever shame kind of enters the picture for something like that, it was a problem. I knew that internally for a while, but I think what ultimately motivated me to put it down was I had a routine doctor's appointment and I had some blood work done and my liver enzymes were heightened and not in a scary range. My doctor wasn't concerned, but I saw like visible proof that I was hurting my body. And I knew that it wasn't going to get better. There was sort of only one way forward. And so I just thought, I really want to live like a long and healthy life. And I'd always wanted that, but it was at such odds with what I was choosing every day. So I just decided I was going to stop for a month until I had the blood work redone. So I didn't really tell anyone. It's kind of a regret in hindsight. I kept it very private. And so I did that first month like completely alone. And that was probably the hardest month. But after that month and I got my blood work redone, my numbers were completely fine in that space. And I thought, you can change your health. You can change this. This can be something that you can control. And it felt like the most obvious choice. It really did.
When was this timing wise?
So that was June. June
of 2020.
Of 2020, yes. So it's been less than a year. So it's been almost 9 months. June 29th was the day, the sort of the first day I didn't have a drink. And that was the start of that first month. So I was going to go to the end of July, and that was sort of the first step of a trial. But I never did again. So there wasn't much fanfare. I know this sounds sort of silly, but I don't even really remember what my last drink was. And I kind of prefer it that way. Like, I feel like I was just taking it day by day. And, I was telling myself, I was being really easy with myself, which is, I think, one of the things that sort of made it stick was, you're just going to do what you can today, and you're just going to get through today. And we'll deal with a month later when we get there.
Can I ask, did you tell your husband that you were doing this trial?
I did. I told him, and Mike is incredibly supportive, but he doesn't push. He's actually a very good husband for someone who was drinking problematically, because he just always really trusted me, and I was I think a lot of people are, and it's one thing that I wanted to join you for, is I think a lot of people drink problematically, but they do a really good job of covering it up, and their lives look totally normal. I was the PTA president. I have a full-time job that I've always been, pretty good at. I have friends and family, and and no one really ever suspected or confronted or talked to me about being worried. And I was just really, really good at covering it up. And Mike especially was surprised when I told him. And I'm, not like floored. I think he started to connect some dots when we had that conversation, but, he was very supportive, whatever he's always been, sort of whatever makes you happy. But, he didn't really push me to talk more than I was comfortable with. So it was a pretty short conversation. And I just said, I'm just going to, I got this blood work, and I think I'm just going to stop drinking for a while. And he was like, he's actually not a big drinker, which has also been really helpful.
Yeah.
And so he's one of those that I've always been really envious of. He can leave half a beer on the counter and just forgets about it. And I'm always like, well, how does that work? My brain it's never worked that way. So I did tell him, and I told my therapist, but I didn't tell anyone else.
So, I'm sorry, Wendy, are you about to say something?
I do have a question, if I
may.
Please.
And
please, I'm going to apologize in advance for if I ask anything that is insensitive. I'm not trying to pry.
I appreciate that.
If you don't want to talk about anything, please. I'm curious because you said you had, you were president of the PTA and you have a full-time job. If you are drinking, let's say at night after your husband goes to bed, are you drinking so much that in the morning that you're struggling with a hangover, or are you drinking to get drunk?
It's a good question, and I do sort of struggle with those details, because, and not the question itself, and I'll answer it, but I think I have found a lot of people are in response to me, they're then eager to convince me that their drinking is normal, which is absolutely not something that they need to do. And so I think people are looking, not you, but people are looking for this number is okay, and this number is a problem, and I'm still in the okay range. So I haven't ever really talked super specifics, and I'm totally willing to, but forgive me if I sound a little nervous. I was drinking, not every night, but when I drank, a bottle of wine. And I definitely would get drunk. Yeah, just to be totally clear about it. And I don't want to be unclear, because I think that's not helpful. I would get up I would take Kyle to school, and his school opened at 7:15. So I was up at 6:30. And so it was rough. I was really harming my body, and I was struggling. I would get through the day, and I would rally every day that I needed to, but it was really hard to feel that internally. I didn't feel good. And, I think it was more important for me to keep this secret than to honor what my body was saying. And so I would just go to my PTA meetings feeling really, really bad. And I would just sort of power through them. And I was really good at it. I was really good at kind of doing everything that needed to be done, which is one of the reasons why I think no one was really suspicious.
And a follow-up question, if I may, and I'm coming from a place of my perspective is I struggle with certain things too, and I fall into this pattern of I'll say, well, I'm not going to do that tonight, and then like I'll do the same thing again and again and again. Were you following a pattern like that? And I'm just curious about the self-talk.
No, that's a great question, and the self-talk is something that I think is important because it was really all that I had, was sort of my own understanding of what was going on and what I was telling myself and the bargains I was making with myself. And, that sort of shame that I mentioned at the beginning, that shame was so strong. And, I would have those conversations all the time. And I would even, kind of go 2 weeks or a couple months, and I would do these sort of challenges that made me feel better for a while. I would go, and I wasn't every night, but it was often. And I would wake up and, like this, I knew it couldn't continue. I just didn't know at what point was I really going to put it down. And I was sort of desperate to keep it for so long. So I would get even better at, like I would make a big show of like stopping when I was out with friends after one or two and just being like, no, I'm done, knowing that I was going to go home and probably drink alone later. So it's a little, I apologize. It's just a little vulnerable, but I think it's really important because I didn't have anyone, and I still haven't heard a lot of people talk in that kind of experience, the experience where they were holding the secret so fiercely and out to sort of externally, no one knew. I've told, two of my best friends, and both of them, who probably know me better in some ways than my husband, had no idea. And that's almost hard because it certainly has made me feel a little bit invisible. But my therapist has been very clear about, you were just really good. You were really good at hiding this, and you only showed what you wanted people to see. So that self-talk was really, really hard. And I think one of the things that sort of motivated me to stop too was I had been doing so much work on myself in other areas with some family relationships and with body image and with some just healing work that I was really proud of. And I knew that this was like this elephant in my own personal brain, that I was never going to get to these goals that I was starting to set for myself with this one thing that I was still holding. So that self-talk, it was almost just like constant conflict with myself for the last, couple of years.
Well, and your comment about feeling invisible, I think it speaks to the fact that you've built these strong friendships, right? So to these people, you're all these other things, and they know who you are. And so to me, it feels less like, yes, you were very good at hiding it, but also that you were, a whole complete person outside of this, right? Like this was very big and important to you, but it isn't 100% who you are, and they see the whole you. And so, I think
appreciate you saying that.
Happening there.
Thank you for saying that. And I've certainly felt that. It's been a little bit hard for me personally to articulate, so I do really appreciate that. I also think I'm protective of that woman. I know what she was, just as you said, what she was saying to herself and how she, hated so much of what she was doing. But also was trying so hard to still be good in so many other ways. And so I get so oddly protective of this version of myself where, when I told my mom, she started to cry, and I was like, please don't do that. Like I'm good. And she was good. She was good too. She had this thing that she wanted to put down, and she obviously needed to, and it was definitely a problem. But don't cry for her. She is working on that herself. So
I think it's incredible that you're willing to talk about it openly, because you're certainly not the only person who is, you know, and not necessarily just about sobriety, but who is perhaps hiding something or dealing with something or has a change they want to make and feels alone. But in terms of sobriety, from your perspective, why do you feel like it's so important that we normalize this conversation?
Yeah, and thanks for asking that, because I do think it's important. Whether you have a problem with alcohol or not, I just feel, and this, I really want to say this in generalities, like I'm not specifically talking about anyone, nor will I ever, because I think that's really personal, and I can never make those statements for another person. So in generalities, I just feel like alcohol has permeated so much of just regular social norms and social situations. I mean, it's everywhere. It's at the movies, it's at the nail salon, it's on planes and trains. It's just in every social situation. And if you don't drink because it doesn't make you feel good, or if you don't drink because you have a history in your family that you just want to make sure you're avoiding, or if you don't drink because you've made that choice to really be sober because you need to be, you have to navigate every day, personally navigate those situations with these like tiny little bombs everywhere. And I just would love to see, I'm not advocating for a complete removal of alcohol from everywhere, but I would just love to see social situations where everyone can breathe easy, and where it's not the centered focus of so much. And, I remember going to a book launch party. I work in publishing. This was a few years ago, and there was no bar. And I remember being like personally shocked, and how strange it was, and at the time I was like, well, this sucks. But now I think, gosh, I'd love to normalize some of those things where it just doesn't have to be everywhere. And for everyone, for all levels of people. And I think sobriety is a choice that just, I'm sure you have, if you've decided you don't feel like drinking one night, the people around you are like, oh, come on, have one, be fun, loosen up. And I get it, because we're all so stressed and we all do want something to help us loosen up. But it just isolates those people so much, even if they're choosing it for a very, easy, non sort of dramatic reason. I have
kind of a acquaintance group where alcohol is very much the center of all their interactions. If you're not drinking in their presence, they're almost uncomfortable. And your conversation of, hey, both choices are okay, right? But I don't have to meet you at your level to be...
Gosh, yeah, exactly how you just said that.
To be able to participate in this.
Well, and just like removing the strange conversation that I think we have about alcohol, where we really don't have it about any other kind of substance. It's very normal not to pretend, like smoke pot. It's legal so many places, but I think it's normal not to do it. Like no one would give you a hard time, at least in sort of like normal circles that I run in. But there is this strange pressure that comes with alcohol. And I think a lot has to do with like a bigger conversation with like how it's marketed and, and all of that. But, I just think it's so interesting and fascinating of how it has become so normal.
Well, and if you look at it as like a treat, right? Like it's a reward. It's a fun thing at the end of the day. Sometimes I look at it as dessert in that same way, right? Like I want a cookie. I want candy at the end of the day. But nobody's going to say to me, if I say no to dessert, nobody's going to say anything to me.
Right.
But that's not quite...
That's a good example.
I mean, it's obviously on a different level, but I think you're right. We put alcohol in this like category of its own, and it's almost like you need to have a stated reason why you're not drinking. Oh, I have an early morning, or oh, I'm not feeling well, or oh, whatever the reason is. And sometimes no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, sometimes no is a complete sentence, but also then there's this other I don't know if you've experienced this, but this strange when a woman is in a certain age range, they must be pregnant. How uncomfortable are you making a woman if she's fighting something internally that you don't know about, or she's not ready to share, and then you jump to a totally personal question like that. It's just, one of the things I also wanted to say is I think it will drive women who are making these choices away from those social circles, which is what I really don't want to see. I would love for it to feel more included and more sort of welcome, where people who are sober for any reason are welcomed into social spaces where they don't want to drink, and that is completely fine. And it doesn't mean alcohol is always removed, but I just think that pressure-filled, intro conversation of like, can I get you something to drink? If it's like, yeah, water, like that's
Great.
Good. Leave it there and get her water and just celebrate her being there.
Right. I've got 4 different flavors of sparkling water, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just as fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good transition to, obviously we've spent the last year in a pandemic. Our social situations have been seriously diminished. So in my mind, it would seem it would make one piece of the sobriety puzzle easier because there's not, dinners and gatherings where alcohol is the center. But going forward, do you have to come up with like a game plan for handling that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it has made it, I think in a lot of ways, I'll look back on this year as like a really pivotal shift in my life. And we all will, right, for different reasons. But, I'm not grateful for the pandemic in any means. I don't mean that. But I think it was a really unique opportunity for me to have this sort of safe space, to give this up without answering, the question sort of over and over again at a party or a social situation or feeling anxious about it. So yeah, I've definitely thought about it. I think, it'll be, like I said, it'll be 9 months next week. And that's given me a lot of time to educate myself, a lot of time to a lot of therapy. And so I feel so much better equipped than I might have last summer. But I think the thing I'm the most nervous about is traveling. It was always such a part of our travel. And, in a really almost normalized way. And I say that like I don't think the drinking was normalized, but I think drinking on vacation is so normal.
Yeah.
You can have a mimosa with breakfast, you can have beer with lunch, you can sort of drink all day long and it can feel very normal. Even people who, don't maybe even drink regularly. So I think that is going to be strange because that was certainly how we traveled, especially when my husband and I were by ourselves. It was very different when we were traveling as a family. But so traveling, I'm a little nervous about, but not in any sort of big way. I just think that's sort of the question mark of how I'll really feel on the ground somewhere. And one other thing is, one of the things that was the most surprising this past year was the cravings really haven't been very bad for me, except in celebratory situations. So like the election was a really rough day for me. Christmas was hard. I think as a surprise of just, the shame part of it and the hiding part of it has been pretty easy to set down. That's not a feeling I miss, but I do miss or have missed sometimes where it's a really happy day and I have to untangle why, those feelings of sort of missing this thing to celebrate with, why they crept up. I wasn't sort of expecting that.
Yeah, it's like you have to create all these new pathways to like, this is the way I celebrate now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, let me jump ahead and then jump back. So do you have ways that you've done that? So I know I've seen your fun mocktails on Instagram, trying to reclaim that tradition in a different way. And does that kind of scratch the same itch?
It scratches it differently. And, one of the things that, just to be really frank, I wasn't making fun cocktails. I was drinking wine in like a coffee mug, to sort of hide it. Or I was drinking it in, not my favorite wine glass. I didn't break those out on a Friday night. And so being able to sort of reclaim delicious beverages that make me feel completely fine the next day. And it's just one that I spend time making, and I'm like squeezing the citrus and I, gotten like fun ingredients and all of that. Like it just feels feels good. And I wasn't really doing a lot of that before. So yeah, and I think rituals in any capacity, whether it's, drinks or snacks or skincare rituals or lighting a candle, whatever it may be, just feels like I'm honoring the moment that I'm in a way that I hadn't been doing in so long. So they all feel like a little bit of a reclaiming. And this is like a sort of an odd segue, but one of the things I read, Quit Like a Woman, which is a book that I think a lot of people have heard about lately. Chrissy Teigen shared it on her Instagram, and I read that first month. That was one of the things, the first tools I found. And, it talks about in that just about AA and sort of why it doesn't work for everyone. And it's a program I don't subscribe to. And part of it is because there's a lot of talk of surrendering in it. And I feel like I was surrendering my whole life as a woman, as a mother, with a sort of shameful secret. I was always giving parts of myself up. And now I feel like I'm reclaiming that for the first time in a really long time. And so I'm not looking to surrender. Like, I'm looking to use my voice and find it for the first time and really be loud about it. And so I think that part of the rituals that I'm, adopting are really in line with that. They align with that reclaiming, which I really love the thought of.
Going back to social situations. So I don't expect that you speak for everybody, but in your case, how can friends be supportive in social situations? We talked a little bit about kind of normalizing alcohol's not the only choice for a beverage. Are there other things your friends can do in those situations?
And one of the things that I mentioned, and just sort of not to start with the negative, but what not to do is don't try to rationalize your relationship with alcohol as the first thing out of your, the first thing you say to a friend who might be confiding in you with this truth. I've had that more than I was expecting, and it just caught me off guard. Where it's like, oh gosh, I'm not judging you. I sort of put down the right to judge other people's relationship with alcohol, and only am judging my own. And my truth, really has nothing to do with yours. So I think just really not centering yourself when someone confides in you with this is a really good move of just listening and just being happy. I had my dad actually, he said the best thing when I told him. He just said, "I'm so happy for you. Is there anything I can do for you?"
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was just the best response. And I've had a couple of people do that. I'm just really happy for you. And, if there's anything you ever need. But I also think just genuine check-ins, genuinely checking in and just, not making it kind of like a sad, dramatic, how are you? Are you struggling? Of just, I'm thinking of you as, if you're having any need for connection, please let me know. And, I certainly don't think people should feel like they have to stop drinking all the time in front of someone. But I think normalizing, a situation where maybe alcohol just isn't present, you don't have to make a big deal about it. But one of the things I was talking to a friend about, who actually also stopped drinking this past year, was just having a girls' night where it's just not there and it's not a big deal. It's not like, hey, I don't have any wine here. I took all of the wine out. It doesn't have to be a big declaration of just hey, I have, just as you said, sparkling water, or maybe it's brunch and we just have a coffee bar or something like that. Making it feel really comfortable without it making someone feel really self-conscious. I know you mentioned in the emails that we were talking about the Real Housewives of Orange County. Oh my goodness. What a time to watch that season. I was newly sober. Gosh, I actually had so much, I just felt like a real soft spot for Bronwyn in those first few episodes because you could just see her anxiety was so palpable. But I thought what Gina did was so perfect. She just said, yeah, I don't need to drink at your vow renewal. I can go that one night without doing it. You're going to have it there for your guests. But if you know one of your friends is a safe place to go to, let that be me. I actually loved that scene and I loved that she did that. It made me, I've been neutral on Gina for the last few seasons, but it made me love her, where I was just what a kind thing to do.
Yeah, she honestly really impressed me a lot in the last season. I thought she was the most mature of all of them. I mean, and I know this is obviously kind of like a lighthearted look at a serious thing, but I remember in that moment thinking, you know, Shannon and Kelly were like, excuse me, but I am not going to not drink at this event. And I thought, really? Like, this is supposed to be your friend, and you cannot go a 3-hour event. And it wasn't even like there wasn't alcohol there. It wasn't their preferred drink of choice. Yeah. That really blew my mind. And I don't think they're alone. Like, I don't think that's an unusual response.
Yeah, and I think I was waiting for them to really talk about it at the reunion, and they didn't quite go there. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I think this is a really normal reaction, that the sober person is the strange one, and how kind of dare she not have tequila at this event. Instead of just, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Shannon and Kelly have a drinking problem. I don't know. Only they do. But to not be able to just be supportive and show up in a really specific way for someone for one night. You know, if alcohol always has to be tied to that fun evening, it just becomes exhausting for the person. As I mentioned, they're just going to stop showing up eventually because it just feels like so much to navigate.
Yeah, they might not have a drinking problem, but they certainly have an empathy problem.
They do, exactly. That's a very good way to say it. Yeah. I mean, I think we've always known that about Kelly.
Yes, this was not shocking information.
This is not shocking. But I was really touched by Gina. And I think she did it in a way where it felt she wasn't making like a big dramatic declaration. She was just like, look, that night I won't be drinking. If you need me, I'll be there.
Yeah, it wasn't
I thought that was really touching. Yeah, it wasn't performative, exactly. And I also feel like I understand why Bronwyn probably had the bar. You're trying to prove you're still fun and you're still normal and you're cool and all of that. I was like that at the beginning too, where I was like, alcohol's fine. Everyone, like on Zooms, just drink all you want. And now I'm kind of moving into a situation where like, yeah, I just may not participate in a big block party or, a margarita happy hour or what have you. And not because I'm judging. I just want to feel good. I just want to feel sort of safer and freer to sort of like take big exhales, which, alcohol's everywhere. If I open up Instagram, I could probably count 50 posts where it's in some capacity within, an hour. And it's in every movie, every TV show, every book. It's just everywhere. So, it's not that it's a trigger. I certainly don't feel like I'm in danger of drinking if I'm around alcohol, but I don't necessarily want to be.
So I think that's the perfect transition to something I would love to talk about, and that is the wine mom persona.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Wendy, I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, we had a circle of people that we kind of worked with. I wouldn't say we knew this person well, but this woman posted a video that was supposed to be comedic, and it, she was in her minivan, holding a glass of wine, backing down the driveway. And it was like this big joke. I don't remember the details, but basically the story was like, haha, like I'm a drunk mom running over my kids' toys with the car. And there's no part of it that was comedic to me. And Wendy's the braver one of the two of us. I'm the one who's like, I'm just going to, things bother me and I don't say anything. And she kind of took her on, and it was very much like, oh, you can't take a joke. And I was like, but it's not funny to be pretending to be driving your minivan drunk.
So I remember the situation, but I don't remember what I said to her. I just said maybe something that it was irresponsible. I don't recall.
I mean, I don't think it was a deep conversation. It was, hey, maybe this isn't so funny to be like joking about driving drunk. And they were like, oh, haha, you can't take a joke. And I was like, no, maybe you don't know what a joke is.
I have a great sense of humor.
I'm hilarious.
I'm really funny. Trust me.
So it's so pervasive, right? Like it's on T-shirts and like bedtime glass of wine. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, mommy juice and,
yes.
And you had asked me at the beginning, sort of what happened. And I will say that there was a moment, about a year and a half ago, so like the November before the pandemic, where we had gone to a friend's house for a party, and I drank more than I would normally sort of in a social situation. And Kyle was there. He was with us. And Mike wasn't drinking. We were fine getting home, but I realized it was the first time I think Kyle had seen me drunk. And I could not shake that was just not what I wanted for, he's 12. At the time he was 11. No, he was 10 at the time. And I just remember thinking, the only thing ahead of you is your son being disappointed and being scared and being sad. And I just, I don't think every woman who participates in that kind of culture is, personally a problem, but I do think that is a problem in general. It's a problem that we're making our kids collectively feel like we can only be drunk to get through parenting them. And it's not like, parenting is really hard. Don't get me wrong. Sure. It's super overwhelming and stressful, but I wanted my personal relationship with my son to be joyful and for him to know that I was really happy to be his mom. And the dark side of those jokes is that there is probably a lot of mothers struggling with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you're just as she said to you, you have a sense of humor or lighten up. So you're taking away this like real feeling that they're having with the struggle. And you're basically also saying in the same joke, a normal mom, wants to sort of be drunk, or at least likes the idea of joking about being drunk in order to get through the day with their children. And don't get me wrong, this pandemic, especially at the beginning, was very difficult. And we probably all felt it, that we needed something to get through the day because it was so hard. But I could see it. I could visually in my mind see what was coming for us, him going to middle school and then high school. And I had this moment of thinking he's not going to want his friends to come over at some point because, he's just not going to want to have to make apologies for me.
That's a big moment.
I know. But, and now he doesn't. So now he doesn't see that. And, I think it'll be a really hard conversation when he and I talk about alcohol as he is faced with those choices himself. And I don't want to bring my baggage to those decisions for him. I want his life to feel very much like his own autonomous life. But I do want to be really open with him about, how it is dangerous. It just is so dangerous if you don't have the tools that you really need to navigate through it. So, but yeah, I think it's really sad, this sort of culture of I have to, and I saw it a lot, and I actually didn't participate in it a lot sort of towards the end because I really didn't want to lie. I didn't want to lie. That sounds funny because I certainly was, lying in a lot of ways, but I didn't want to make those jokes because I just knew they were not, they were not right for me. And so I didn't really participate in any of that language for a really long time. And I just, it just breaks my heart. It really does. It just breaks my heart that so many moms are participating in really free marketing for alcohol. That big alcohol is just thrilled. They're like, yes, paint your wine glasses with mommy juice or whatever it's called. It just makes me really sad. But I also just think normalizing, as we've been talking about, normalizing sober situations and normalizing coffee or water or mocktails or whatever it may be, it chips away at that. It chips away. And when you spoke up, Wendy, I think that's, I think it's incredible because I do think speaking up, even if it's gently, even if it's, or even if it's not well received, is it chips away at that. It chips away. And someone saw that comment, I promise, and thought, thank goodness that she said it, because it probably was like a punch in the gut, to see that video.
Wendy and I have talked about there was a swing online at kind of in the second wave of the mommy bloggers where, yes, we were willing to talk openly about parenting. And I think that's important. But then it swung so hard in the let's only talk about how terrible this is and how we're all just enduring this horrible place in our right. It just felt to me like this is terrible. We're all in this terrible position together. Having children, that was the messaging that I felt came from, because that sold. People thought it was funny. You know, there was a joke to be made. And then on the tails of that came like, hey, we can only endure this with a glass of wine in our hands. And, you know, it was that add-on messaging. Look, parenting's hard. Wendy and I talk all the time. We both have teenagers. Like, this is not, we don't pretend that it's easy. But I don't ever want my children to think like this is a time in my life that I'm enduring and slogging through with them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no. And even if, you know, we've been children, we know, we think that they don't get it. You know, like we think that they don't, like, they're not absorbing that full message. And I promise some of them are, especially as they get older. They're just, you know, and I actually was talking to a kid. So I didn't really know him, but he was at school and he was volunteering for an event that we did. And so I was just talking to him and I asked where his mom was. And he said, she's probably drunk with her friends. And I was just like, oh, and he was maybe 13, 14. And I sort of internally just like tightened, where I was just like, oh, they know, they're just watching, and they know if you're not present for them, like physically and mentally present, they just can feel it. And it just cuts away at them. It's like, you know, it's death by a thousand cuts. You know, that one day is probably not a big deal, but added collectively up, they're probably carrying pain that they can't even really verbalize. Yeah. And it's just like, can't we like make jokes about, just as you said, like funny, can I say bad words on this?
Of course.
Can I like, let's laugh about real funny shit. Like there's funny stuff out there. Like you know, we have senses of humor, I promise. And like that, it's just such a lazy joke. I'm just like unimpressed with someone if that's their sense of humor. Take the cultural things away from it. It's just so lazy.
Let me ask you, Jennie, have you had a conversation with your son about becoming sober yet?
Yes. Yeah. Real age appropriate. Okay. So just, you know, I really wanted to take better care of myself, and alcohol is, this sounds so dramatic, and I really don't mean it to sound judgmental, but it is poison. You know, it's like ethanol. It's what we put in cars. And so it, you know, I just have talked about it this was a good health decision. This was a good decision for my body and my mind, and for being a mother. And he, you know, I know that this probably seems hard to believe, but he didn't see me drink a lot. And that night, you know, is so clear in my head because it was one of the only times I remember him kind of looking at me and thinking, I knew he was like, what is going on with her? And I will never kind of forget that. And, you know, so I think our conversations have been pretty age appropriate and have been kind of top level. And I think we'll probably have to get into sort of more details as he gets older. Mm-hmm. And I try to be really open with him, and without having to like press him to have conversations that serve me more than maybe they serve him.
Right.
So yeah, we've talked about it, and he knows that I don't drink. And Mike, like I said, Mike never really drank, so there's not really alcohol in our house. And yeah, I think that's been pretty normalized for him. Thankfully, we've all been home together for so long. You know, it was kind of a gentle transition from maybe seeing wine bottles before to not seeing them anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm really open and ready to have those conversations when it's time with him as he gets older. Let me just say, I realize this is heavy stuff. And I'm so grateful to have it. I think these heavy conversations are important, but I think one of the things that I most want to communicate is just how incredible life is kind of on the other side. You know, I was really afraid of being boring, and that was like my biggest fear, of just like being boring and life being boring and social situations being boring. And I remember saying that to myself, like, but what will you do? What will you do with your evenings if you can't like pour a glass of wine? And gosh, I've had more fun, and I have been happier, and I have been less boring on the other side. And so I think what I would want to say to anyone who is maybe having those same thoughts or those same anxieties is the good stuff really starts when you put it down. I promise. That's the one thing that I feel really confident promising. And yeah, so I just, you know, there's a lot of really good, happy shit on this side, I promise.
I think that is the perfect takeaway. I love that. And I do think, like, yeah, this is heavy, but I also think it's really important because, there's a lot that we don't talk about and a lot that we should normalize talking about. And we so appreciate you being so vulnerable and willing to talk about this because and I know, and Wendy knows that this is not just unique to you. There's so many people that are on this path at some point. So we're going to take a very quick break and we're going to come back and talk Megan and Wendy and Jennie approved. This episode is brought to you by Home Chef. Home Chef is one of our favorite ways to save time and energy lately. Delicious ingredients and easy to follow recipes get dinner on the table fast. Wendy and I are both paying Home Chef customers. Right now you can get $90 off at Home Chef with code LSSPOD by visiting meganandwendy.com/homechef.
If you've made an effort to shop small lately, we can't recommend Celestial Shell highly enough. Her beautifully made items like zippered pouches and book sleeves make great gifts and treats for yourself. Use LSS Friends 15 at celestialshell.com for a discount at checkout.
All right, guys, it is time for Megan and Wendy approved, and Jennie has graciously agreed to join us for this final segment. So as our guest, we're going to let you go first and let us know what you have.
Okay, I have two things. I hope that's okay.
Of course.
I've become kind of obsessed with candles, and I have a brand that I have fallen in love with. It's called Apotheke, and it's spelled Apotheke. And they have the most unique and incredible scents. I've got 4 or 5 of them, and every one of them, I've seen the scent, and then I have smelled it and thought, I don't know about this. And then I light it, and it is just the most incredible aroma. So I've gifted them now. I have subscribed to their Candle of the Month Club. I love them. And I think my second thing is just sort of a general, I have become obsessed with skincare. It's sort of like post sobriety, I'm like, that is where my attention has gone most nights, is just what mask I can do. What can I add to my routine? And I think face masks in general are my other approved. I love Glam Glow. Those are great masks. Caudalie, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they have some really great masks. And some Kiehl's masks that I've really loved too.
Those are great ones. I want a Candle of the Month subscription too.
I have one of them lit by me, and it's called Charred Fig, and it's my favorite scent of theirs. It's so good.
I love a fig scent. I have a fig body wash that I love, and it's one of those scents. I'm like, who knew that figs were like
yeah,
this
yeah,
scent,
exactly. I don't like eating them, but they smell really good.
All right, Wendy.
Well, coming off of our Splurges and Saves episode, I felt compelled to share a save item. Ooh. And it is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. Yes. I've loved this product for so long. As we transition into spring and summer, I love the scent of it. It's like a tropical, coconutty, put me on a beach scent. And it's just a really great bronzer for a fraction of the price.
I'm wearing it today. It's a great bronzer.
Love it.
So we have an unintentional theme in today's Megan and Wendy Approved segment, in that everything has a great scent. So what I'm sharing is something that has been a long time favorite of ours, but it's in a new scent from Trader Joe's. There's a new body butter, and it's grapefruit.
Ooh.
And it smells.
Do you love a citrus?
Delightful. I keep shoving my nose in it. I've put it on probably 10 times on my hands since yesterday. I mean, it's the same great body butter that we love from Trader Joe's in this delightful, citrusy, summery scent. The lid is this beautiful coral color, which shouldn't matter.
Oh, yes. The packaging matters. The packaging matters.
I saw it on Instagram, and needed to make a grocery run yesterday, and I was like, I guess I'm going to Trader Joe's because I needed the body butter. It didn't matter that I came home with anything else.
Grapefruit is brand new for them, right? They've never made that one before?
As far as I know, I have never seen it before.
Yeah,
They usually do coconut for the summer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have the coconut one. I haven't been to Trader Joe's in a year since the pandemic started. And I think I'm going tonight for the first time. So it's kind of a perfect timing that you bring that up, because I have just made a note and I will be purchasing it and reporting back.
Yes, look for it. I loved it. Are you a grocery pickup person in the pandemic?
Yeah. We've gotten, pickup or delivery. Our Trader Joe's is just so small. It's like one of the smallest ones I've ever been in. And I live in Texas, and it's been a little bit of a fight in general here. So even though Trader Joe's is a great company and I think they have great policies, it's just been a little, like, every time I've tried, it's just been an overwhelming exercise. So I've abandoned ship. So
okay, Jennie, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, where can people find more from you?
Thank you. This has been really wonderful. I am mostly on Instagram. It's my social media platform of choice. And it's my full name. So Jennie with an IE, Canzoneri. Hopefully you guys will put that in the show notes. That's a mouthful.
Will.
And if anyone, is listening and any of this resonated with them and they want to reach out, through DM or otherwise, please feel free to. I would love to be, a potentially safe space or an ear for someone who might just not know who to talk to. So it's, one of the things that I didn't touch on that I think is really crucial to communicate is how important not doing this alone is, and having really safe support systems in place. And so if I can be that for anyone out there, I would really be honored.
Such a generous offer. I really appreciate that from my side of things. I think that's not everybody has that safe space. And I can say from knowing Jennie for years that I think that's a very genuine offer. So if you need it, hey, you can find Wendy and I on Instagram, Megan and Wendy LSS, or our Facebook group, which is Long Story Shorties. And we're going to be back on Thursday because Hallmark Channel Spring Fling starts, and we are going to be discussing Chasing Waterfalls. Until next time, everybody, have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye.